Madame Web. Ho, ho, ho. Let's do this. So Madame Web is an origin story of an unknown Marvel superhero. Well, unknown to me anyway. But after a bit of research, I found out Madame Web is blind and old.
This movie is before she ends up in a wheelchair.
So I was expecting a thing to happen where the blindness would set at the very least, because, suddenly becoming old just won't work for the subsequent sequels. You know what? With the way this was made, they could easily make her old, because apparently Peter Parker's just about to get born. But this superhero release is the first of 3 this year for Sony, who are expanding their own Marvel universe with a slate of upcoming movies featuring lesser-known characters from the Spider-Man comics. The studio has been begging to capitalize on the success of Venom, which grossed over $850 million worldwide.
What the hell are you? We are Venom.
And the Oscar-winning Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse / Across the Spider-Verse, which introduced a multiverse of web slingers. What a film. What? Those 2 films? Both films. Among the projects in development are Kraven the Hunter, a film about a big game hunter who becomes obsessed with hunting down Spider-Man, and Venom 3 with Tom Hardy. I don't even know how they've made a 3rd film, because the second one was... But you know what? There could be even more spin-offs, like Black Cat, Silver Sable, Silk, Jackpot, Nightwatch. I mean, the possibility of a crossover with Tom Holland's Spider-Man, that could potentially happen as well. But Sony, they're kind of screwing over this Marvel Cinematic Universe with their incoherent and uninteresting films. But also Sony, they gotta be careful not to repeat the mistakes made in the past, Marvel Studios, and deliver quality films that can stand on their own and appeal to a wider audience. Unfortunately, Sony might need to wait for Kraven the Hunter to come out before they start making more decisions, because if they want to look at the future, like looking at figures alone from Madame Web, they might as well just call it quits now. What I'm wondering though is that Madame Web is just an obscure and unappealing character that has barely any connections to Spider-Man's main storylines or villains. And also, God bless Sony, their track record of making these Spider-Man spin-off movies, they're either mediocre or just downright terrible. Which leads me on to Dakota.
So you're a part of the Marvel universe.
I know.
They got you. They got you.
Who is kind of like, she's just emotionless in this film. A bit like in 50 Shades. She never fills me with any confidence when I see her as the main actor. I gotta be honest though, I really liked her in The Lost Daughter, as she got to show off some acting chops towards the last scene of the movie. I know she's got the ability, but with this film, Madame Web, she just plays like some smarky know-it-all. And when I say know-it-all, I mean know-it-all, because she can see into the future. After an accident, she gets the power of foresight. It's a good enough excuse to blind this woman, please. So yeah, with the power of foresight, like Nicolas Cage has in The Knowing, she's on the tube and starts seeing some of the girls get hurt by this bloke. Oh my god, this bloke.
He was in the Amazon with my mom when she was researching spiders right before she died.
So he's at the beginning of the movie, kills her mum 30 years later, or 40 years later. I don't know how old Dakota is, so we're going 40, because she's probably about 40.
Is this like a cancelled thing? Am I being cancelled?
All right, let's go 30. So this guy looks exactly the same as he did 30 years ago. And Dakota, she decides that she wants to protect these 3 girls that are going to be killed by this guy, because he's had a vision where these 3 girls kill him. The 3 girls are Sydney Sweeney, Isabella Merced, and Celeste O'Connor. Sydney Sweeney, we know about her from Anyone But You, Euphoria. Isabella Merced, I saw her in Sicario 2, and definitely Dora the Explorer. And Celeste O'Connor, she was in A Good Person, the film with Florence Pugh, and directed by Zach Braff. But this is where we come to one of the major flaws in the film, where these 3 girls, even Dakota, we got 4 quality actors and they're just not utilized in the way that they should be. And what's going on with the bad guy, who's kind of like It Follows, where, It Follows, where the monster's like walking towards our victims? That's kind of like the same thing that's going on here. He's taken out all the police officers when he could have taken out the girls with ease. But no, we're going to long the film out. And also, where's the superhero stuff? And the girls, Oh my god, script-wise, they keep getting themselves into these situations where they're begging to be excommunicated. I mean, they do in the Madam Web visions, which is quite nice, but then we have to go back and then, you know, they get saved. But everything comes to a head later on in the film. Madame Web saves the day, and she gets fireworks in her eyeballs, and she goes blind. So at least I got what I wanted. But just before the credits roll, we see the three girls as superheroes and her as a spirit. It's like, nobody cares. Nobody cares. And that special spirit stupidness that Madame Web has, that she saves everyone at the end of the movie. I mean, come on, man. This film isn't very good, mainly down to poor storytelling.
There were times when SJ and I would adjust things, but the script was pretty good.
And there's a lengthy portion of the film where Dakota has to protect these girls, but decides to go do her own thing. She's like, let me go to the Amazon and find out about my mum, when she's got to look after these girls. Instead, I think she gives them to Uncle Ben. You know, Peter Parker's uncle. Yeah, he's like looking after him. Sony Marvel must just be clutching at straws with this Spider-Man universe thing. I think they just got to give up. And they got that, Kraven the Hunter, Venom 3 coming out. Just, you know, put the cherry on top with Morbius 2 at the end of the year, please. And oh my god, what's this Easter egg with Emma Roberts as Peter Parker's mum? There's a part where you have to guess what the baby's name is, and she's about to say Peter Parker, and then, a balloon explodes and the scene ends. And Uncle Ben, played by Adam Scott. He's cool. He's fine. He's just nice. And yeah, Mike Epps gets a nice little feature in the film for about 5 minutes before he's killed off. This film is also directed by S.J. Clarkson. Sorry, I never even mentioned who the director was because it doesn't really matter. But she's been given this thankless task. Directing wise, I mean, there's these parts where Dakota has foresight, so she sees the same thing happening. I mean, the amount of times they've had to film these parts over and over again and have these small little nuances, just the small little differences. Like S.J. Clarkson does a pretty good job of telling that story. I mean, sometimes the editing is all over the place and I think it's deliberate, but it's also just, I don't know, it just doesn't really work. But what did you think about Dakota Johnson's portrayal of Cassandra Webb, or Cassie Webb as they call her in the film?
I know that when you see Madam Web, you're gonna love it. In fact, I think you're gonna see it twice.
I've seen this film 3 times already. I don't think it's actually as bad as people say it is. It's a bad film. It's terrible, but it's not as bad as people are saying. Is it better than Morbius though? Does it make Morbius look like a masterpiece? I mean, kind of, because Morbius is a better film, like slightly better, thanks to Matt Smith. Although I would argue that Madame Web's aesthetic, you know, the way it looked, it felt, you know, the hammy dialogue, this material seems suited for the 2000s. It's that kind of movie. I'm actually quite disappointed we didn't have Colin Farrell or Ben Affleck pop up on our screens for a cheeky cameo. It's a shame Madame Web won't be as successful in 2024, as it might have seen better returns if it came out 20 years ago. The underlying issue in this current climate is the oversaturation of superhero movies. However, Madame Web's ideas are far too basic for our evolved brains, especially for us superhero fans, blessed with recent gems like the Batman. There's a benchmark for me. And I don't expect that every time, but when it comes to origin stories, I've seen my fair share as well. And Madame Web would fall to the baseline, but it's saved by performances on screen rather than anything else. Madame Web for the average moviegoer, and I'm sure most comic book adaptation fans, well, I believe they'd describe this film as a certified piece of shit.
Piece of shit. You raised a piece of shit. You raised a piece of shit.
But yeah, Madame Web. In terms of stars, I mean, this is where people are going to get annoyed with me, because I'm going to give it 2.5 stars. It's kind of fine, but it is bad. But it's watchable. It's so bad, it's kind of alright. Even though I've properly slated the film, gone hard on it, would definitely watch it again. I don't know what that says about me. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the review. Let me know what you thought of the film. Let me know how wrong I am. And yeah, let's look forward to the next video.